Hey everyone, thanks for being on the call tonight. I'm excited about doing this particular call this evening due to some personal experiences I've had about learning how to trust myself and different things that maybe sometimes we all get caught up in. And so we'll start this evening with just a prayer to center ourselves and balance our energy, just call ourselves back to ourselves, which is always it's really a great way to learn how to trust ourselves anyway. So just breathing in and following the natural rhythm of your breath. We're just going to take several breaths, breathing in. And you just kind of want to say that to yourself. I'm breathing in. And I'm breathing out. You can watch the rise and fall of your breath going up and down your spine or in and out of your heart. I'm breathing in. I'm breathing out. I'm breathing in. I'm breathing out. And just notice even doing that, how you feel. Just even taking 3 rhythmic breaths, if you feel a little more centered, like you've come back home to yourself from the distractions of the day. Just breathing in. And now we're going to expand into the wisdom of the conscious heart, which is like a 3-fold flame. It's like that sacred heart center. So we're breathing into the wisdom of the conscious heart and breathing out the wisdom of the conscious heart. Now what that does is it starts to open up your soul's wisdom. And again, when you're trying to regain your trust with yourself, these are a few important things to do along the way. And I'm going to expand into the temple of the Great Central Sun Angels, which is my council of light, overlighting us. You also may want to call into your council of light. So we're going to do that now as we open up a quantum prayer field, calling into each of our councils of light coming in and around us. And really take a moment to feel their presence. Maybe you work with angels or star beings, galactic councils, planetary light beings, cosmic avatars, ascended masters, the nature kingdom. So these are your 7 different tribes, councils, families of light that we can work with, right? That are on a dimensional plane. So again, just noticing, really giving yourself a moment to feel them come in and around you into your energy field. And notice how they feel to you. If they feel peaceful, loving, if there's a light, a color, a sound, a frequency, a fragrance, a symbol, just a clear cognizant knowing of their presence, clairsentient feeling. And then we're rebuilding trust. Having your councils of light with you goes a long way as well, because they act as like a guidance council for you. Now we're going to open up the living field of unconditional love in, around, through, and between all of us on this call or people listening later, and with all of life. So it's an actual field. The field of unconditional love is an actual field of energy. And when you call it in and you just put your attention on it with your free will, it's like you're igniting that energy, right? And it's a great way to go into any kind of communication with people or automatic journaling or meditation. Just open up that field of unconditional love. In, around, through, and between us with all of life. And in doing that, igniting the miracle frequencies. I mean, why not? We're in a quantum field, right? So let's just go ahead and ignite all the miracle frequencies, because whoever we are, whatever we're doing, whatever we're about, it's awesome to ignite miracle energy. So there's miracle frequencies. It's like an invitation that you're making to the universe to unfold those miracle frequencies in your life, right? By asking for it, inviting it in, being open to it. We're going to go ahead and seal our energy with the Archangel Michael's sapphire blue force field of light. The tube of pure electronic white light coming in, around, through, and between us, grounding our energy into the sacred earth star and all the way into the heart of the earth. Feeling that tube of light going all the way down and through you from your hips down. Feeling solid and grounded in yourself. And when you ground yourself, this is going to be another tool for learning how to trust yourself, is using the statement of, as I'm grounding my energy and I'm standing in my own seniority. So I'm actually going to type that into our box over here. Okay, so I am grounded in my own seniority. And again, the minute you do that, you'll feel yourself almost like a heart lock in. You'll feel yourself just kind of lock in. And you're remembering not to give your power away to others, essentially. So when you're grounded, standing, sitting, being, breathing, however, whatever adjective you want to use, verb, into your own seniority, that goes a long way. And you can feel it. You know what I mean? It's like it's empowering. It builds self-confidence, self-esteem. You might stand a little taller. And like I said, it sends a message to our unconscious, conscious, superconscious self that I'm standing in my own seniority, and you start to come into alignment with yourself. All right, so that's our opening prayer, but I wanted to go through it and just explain some of it to you, reference to how it can help you with rebuilding your own trust, right? So that simple little prayer does a lot. It's kind of power-packed in what it can help you do in maintaining your focus and your connection with others. Okay, now that we've got our qualified prayer sealing us in the violet transmuting flame and the flame of peace and the flame of grace and that awesome, cool blue force field of light, we've kind of grounded out our energy. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about trust and what got me interested in it more recently, right? So, I've been working on some family issues on a personal level. And in doing that, I started interacting with a family member who, in communicating with all my family members, I realized that this particular family member was telling everybody different stories. And it made it very confusing on how to move forward and how to be of service and all that. And then I started realizing, wow, like this is kind of like breaking some trust issues for me. This person who I'd given a lot of power to, as a family member. And they kind of represent, in a sense, maybe kind of a matriarch in the family. So, and my father had his own issues around mental illness and habitual lying, aspects of schizophrenia and narcissism, all kinds of different things, right? He was riddled with a bunch of different things. So, but habitual lying is one of them. And so you realize when you're, when you're a child, particularly for the people who are going to be more on this call, you're more than likely going to be highly intuitive, highly sensitive, have special traits, empathic qualities. So you can only imagine what it's like then for kids with a lot of sensitivity, that if you're being raised by parents who have different issues. And sometimes it's just they have their own traumas. Maybe they came from a family of alcoholism, or they had sexual abuse. Some families have a little bit more mental illness or emotional imbalances than others. Or you might have an uncle or a grandparent, or somebody who's, again, kind of a head of the family that everybody kind of looks to, right? So it doesn't even have to be exactly your parents. It can be grandparents or some other power figure in your family. And most family members have it. And families are oftentimes, obviously kind of very tribal by nature in our humanness. So as I'm kind of breaking open this realization within myself, what's kind of happening, and most of all, how I feel about it, how it's making me feel in my body. I feel kind of crazy. I feel kind of like nothing I do is right. Nothing's working. Everything's my fault or somebody else's fault. There's a lot of signs, a lot of red flags going off. And I'm praying to my angels, and this is a great prayer to do before you go to bed at night. If you're seeking guidance, counsel, resolution with something that you haven't been able to quite break through yet. So before you go to bed at night, you call into, I'll put this in the box too, is the Elohim of grace. So the Elohim of grace is an Elohim angel, and the Elohim of grace works with the frequencies of grace, and grace is one of the rays of creation that can actually help to interrupt karmic patterns. And so when you feel really, you've got your brain's been hardwired for a certain way of believing, you're confused, you're overwhelmed, you're not sure what to do, you have a lot of mixed emotions, grace can come in and help to unravel a lot of these issues, but it also helps to release from karmic life issues. And it brings with it, in a sense, kind of that flame of forgiveness. So it's an incredibly powerful ray. And when you call it in before bed, it will oftentimes start working with you to help you to release things that are deep in the unconscious, just by saying that simple prayer. I'm calling forth the Elohim of grace to please help me with whatever it is. So I had been doing that just because the situation was had so many red flags and was upsetting. So I woke up one morning and the word gaslighting came into my head. And I hadn't really, considered it. And most of us knows what the basic idea of gaslighting is. It comes from, I think, a 1940s movie, I think, and the article I posted tells you. But it comes from a movie where there's this man and he's with this woman and they live downtown somewhere, I guess. And there's these gas lights, it's the 1940s, and there's these gas lights on the street. And she would go to bed and feel like the gas lights were going out. And he would say, no, they're not going out. I don't know what you're talking about. And every night he would go and turn the gas light down. And it made her feel crazy, right? So when somebody's gaslighting you, so it does come from the origin of that movie as a term, but what it does is it makes the other person feel crazy, it's misleading, it's manipulative, and I feel like it's psychologically cruel, at the very least, honestly. So sometimes you have people who will do that. They can be people in religious capacities, political capacities. You see a lot on Facebook, on social media. And so I really wanted to do this talk on trust tonight because of my own personal experience and how it helped me to understand some things, but also because I feel like there's, for people in our community that have high intuition and high empathy, there's relationship issues that we can get caught in. And like I said, all kinds of social media things we can get caught in. And it was just a worthy subject that I just wanted to share. So when I woke up in the morning after calling in the Elohim of grace, the word gaslighting came into my head. And I thought, wow, that's interesting, because when it comes in that crystal clear first thing in the morning, I usually take notice of it and I'll write it down, or I'll do automatic journaling, or I'll go do research. So with that term, I went to do research. Well, when I pulled it up, I noticed like one of the very first articles that came up, and I've never seen this one before, was on parents gaslighting their children. And again, you have to keep in mind, this will be for any matriarch or patriarch of your family. It doesn't have to be actually a parent, right? But it's on parents gaslighting children, and how, as an adult, if somebody's gaslighting you, you can walk away, you can deal with it. Yes, it's probably a pain to deal with, but as an adult, you have a little bit more resources to deal with it. But as children, it's almost like double damaging, because when you have a parent or a matriarch or a guardian that is doing the gaslighting, that person already has an extra level of power over a child, right? It's just kind of the nature of the guardian child relationship. So they already have this power. And what you hope for with somebody that is a guardian of children is that they're going to be worthwhile guardians, that they're going to be worthy of that title, that they will act on behalf of the person they're being a guardian of for their highest and best good. But when you have somebody who maybe has had their own traumas that maybe were unresolved, it can very easily tend to lead towards gaslighting, which I would say is probably a form of narcissism. It's in that category, that umbrella. So to break down narcissism a little bit, I think it gets a little bit confusing, because on one level, there are people that maybe you could look at from a psychological viewpoint of narcissism, and they might have chemical imbalances. Like my father had chemical imbalances, and so his level of mental illness and stuff was coming more from that, and then he added to it alcoholism and drug abuse and trauma. Okay, then you have somebody we say, you're a narcissist. We like to throw that term around quite a lot, actually, with anybody who we feel, not honored by, right? But there are people who have a form of narcissism, and again, the umbrella has different things. There's psychopath and sociopath and borderline, and so there's different variations of it, right? But a lot of people, particularly borderline personality people, a lot of times theirs might be set up more from trauma. So in other words, it's not chemical. So you kind of have two different phases here. You have maybe narcissism, and that's just the way I understand it. So if you have a deeper understanding or whatever, I'd love to hear back from you on it. But there's a level of narcissism that comes from people who might have actual chemical imbalances, like sociopaths and stuff, where people they're just sort of missing certain chemicals and certain ways of processing. And then there's people who are acting in narcissistic ways because they have trauma and they are triggered by something. And in a behavior pattern, they might act narcissistic, but they are not necessarily narcissistic as a whole person. So, with gaslighting, whether people mean to do it or not consciously, you're kind of looking at that, in its own way of where, why they're sort of doing it. You know what I mean? So again, there can be like people who are just really kind of chemically off, or people who have traumas. Either way, you may not be able to fix either of those two problems. So you kind of have to take that into mind. So again, going back to the gaslighting with the parents or some kind of guardian in your family. And so if you're a highly sensitive soul and you come in with a certain level of consciousness, what happens is you can sense truth. You can sense emotional subtleties and the subtleties of feelings. You're more in communication to a person's soul, and the soul does not lie, right? So you're in touch with these other factors. And then when the person acts kind of bizarre, or they have addictions, or they're sexually out of balance, or they're lying, or there's just a whole lot of different ways that people can kind of gaslight you, but basically they're talking you out of your own feelings. So if you have a childhood where you feel like you're in a certain sense of survival, what happens is we kind of leave our body. And when we leave our body out of our survivalism of, I've got to be something for that person, I have to mediate my parents, I have to figure out how to handle the sibling, too much responsibility is thrown on to too young of an age. You're raised with any kind of addictions in the family. There's rage issues, unresolved anger issues, depression, all these different types of issues that can be in family units. then children in general, I think, will tend to leave themselves, but highly sensitive children will not only sort of step away from themselves, but they'll start using their special traits to actually try to govern the situation. And, you want to look at it in terms of your own behavior right now. Do you have a tendency to either fight with somebody when you get upset, take flight, want to run away? But a third one that's maybe not as common, and I think that special trait people tend to do this quite often, is fawning. And I know for me, that's kind of my, the resource I kind of go to, right? So I'm not really big into fighting, particularly as a healer. It's just, I don't want to get into fighting. Running, definitely I'm not bad at running. I can for sure do that one given the opportunity and the scenario. But if I can't get out, again, you have to think about it in terms of children's energy, that a lot of times little kids aren't in a position to fight somebody. And they're also not in a position to run away, because where are they going to go? So the third resource that oftentimes happens is the fawning. And the fawning can sometimes also be a little bit like the Stockholm syndrome, but it's where you take somebody that may be gaslighting or abusive or out of balance in some way, or that you just don't feel safe around for some reason, and then you try to please them. You actually maybe even put them on a pedestal. You make them feel special. You start dancing around them. So fawning has a lot to do with people who are peacemakers. They're mediators. They will, unfortunately, a lot of times we will tell people stuff, whatever it takes to get them to calm down. It isn't always true. There's probably a version of truth to it, but that's what the person needs to hear or wants to hear. And so you become an incredible negotiator. And I think children do this quite often, but children with special traits, crystal children, diamond children, golden children, the rainbow children, the indigo children, people with special traits, they have all these special traits: telepathy, empathy, soul communication from other dimensions. They're perceiving energy on such a high level that they know how to read the room and read other people at a high level. And in doing that, sometimes what happens, which is really unfortunate, is we will lose ourselves. So we start reading our external environment to the point that we're not actually connecting to ourselves any longer. Now, I'll speak from my own experience that for me, having that high level of being able to read energy, that when you're in a high stress situation with people, and of course family is like all of our core karmic issues kind of reside there on some level. So when you're dealing with family issues particularly, you are going to probably be more susceptible to those high states of stress in your energy field, and wanting to navigate the situation, at that high level for your own survival. So in doing that, you have a tendency to lose yourself, and you'll start if you're highly empathic, you're going to start running everybody else's emotions through your body, and that will cause high stress, overwhelm, confusion, and worst off, high anxiety. So you're running 4 and 5, 2 and 3, whatever people's energies, emotions through your nervous system, and it's too much. And you'll find that you become very anxious, worried, that kind of thing. And maybe even depressed. You can go high or low with that one. If you're highly intuitive, meaning that you're maybe acting more out of your clairvoyant ability, or you're picking up thought forms, you're going to be picking up on people's projections and thoughts and what they are thinking, what they're needing. And it's very possible that you're picking up on both. And then there's like a third level, which adds fuel to the fire in terms of your intuition. And that's if you're also picking up entities and elemental life force energies and discarnates that can also come in. Because a lot of times when people do have addictions or mental emotional illness, they will also a lot of times attract in. It's like they're kind of an open conduit, sort of like a sift. They're just very open in their auric field, and that invites in entities, elemental life force energies, discarnates, things of like that. So you can be picking up emotions, then you can be picking up thought forms, and you can also be picking up entities. And you can imagine if you're highly sensitive, you could be picking up on all three of those levels all at the same time. So again, with the gaslighting, when somebody's kind of purposely doing that, it will have a tendency to cause the receiver, the person being gaslighted, to question themselves. Like, well, I thought I know what the truth was, but now I'm not so sure because they're telling me this, and because it's a parent or an authority figure of some sort, maybe it's a priest or a religious person that's gaslighting their community, or a political figure, or again, a family member, or it can be a number of things, but it's usually an authority figure. And in the process of that, again, you just start to question your own sense of self. So, and that is probably the scariest thing for people who are highly connected, is to lose connection to themselves. And so when people are doing this gaslighting thing, that's a big deal. So I would take a look at the article that I posted, read through it, see if it resonates with you. That is one element of energy that I would for sure check out for yourself. And it gives you things to look for. If you are a parent gaslighting your child, but just sort of reverse it. Unless you are a parent gaslighting your child, then read it and learn from the article. But if you're a child wanting to know if your parents or any kind of authority figure is doing that, look at the, I think there's like 10 different things to watch for. And that's how you know. And now, I mean, it's almost embarrassing to tell you the truth, because as intuitive as I am, and is what I do for a living, and how I'm able to help others, it's embarrassing for me to, acknowledge that I can't tell the difference. And I've invited people into my life that hit that mark. And on personal relationships, like, most of my personal relationships have followed in suit to this particular family member. So if you have a family member or an authority figure, a guardian in your life that has this tendency to do this gaslighting, and what it kind of means, the way I notice it, is that people who do gaslighting, they need to be in control. They have major, major, major control issues, more than just like regular control issues, but like hyper OCD control issues, right? And they want to be in control of everything. And their way of doing that, their mind, it feels as though, a lot of times I also find that people who are gaslighting are highly intelligent, maybe even genius oriented. Like my father had genius energy to him. And when genius energy or highly intelligent people don't have compassion, or they have their own traumas, they can take that same quality of having a genius capacity and they twist it. And then, when they feel out of control, they'll start controlling others with really weird gaslighting and lies and manipulations. And I find that most people are just really good people. Most people really just want to be of service. They have empathy. They care. And so when you come across somebody who pretends to be somebody they're not, or has to be in control at the cost of your free will, or is manipulating or telling stories to get their way about something, it just is a whole different thing, I think, for a lot of people. Like a lot of people I know really give others the benefit of the doubt. They really, and think about yourself. I mean, do you tend to want to believe in the better of people? Do you want to trust them? Do you want to honor somebody and give them, something if they needed help? It's just a natural human tendency, I think, to want to do that. But when you come across somebody who is misusing that, it will cause the person on the receiving end of that not to trust themselves, right? And so part of that lack of trust is you giving your trust to other people over and over and over. And not everybody's gaslighting, but you might just have a tendency to give your trust outside of yourself. And the reason you're doing that, and this is like the core thing, okay? So the reason you would be giving your trust to somebody else, a partner, a child, a therapist, a this, a that, an authority figure, a friend, a family member, the reason we have a tendency to do that is that we're not trusting ourselves, right? So I'm trusting your opinion of what I should do in my relationship over my own. I'm trusting you to tell me how to manage my money more than myself, like a financial advisor. You know what I mean? And so with people who have good intentions and have wisdom, you want to be able to allow them to help you with your money, your relationship issues, to be able to support you, right? But you want to be able to trust yourself in the process of it, so at the end of the day, whatever guidance you've got from the world around you and your resources, because we're all here to support one another and help one another, you want to be able to trust yourself ultimately. And so I'd recommend that, and I'm doing this for myself, anytime you direct a question towards your soul, it will always answer you. It will always help you figure that out. So if I say I want to learn how to read auras, my soul will help teach me that. And I just stay focused on it until I learn how to do that. If I say I want to make this amount of money, then my soul will go to work and it will do that. If I say I want to create a certain type of relationship, my soul will be like, oh, got it. We'll do that. Okay, so in this case, right, so that's the cool thing about the soul, is that if you talk to it and you ask it questions and you work with it, it will always respond to you. And the soul, I love the soul. The soul is the coolest thing, because the soul is like the interface between your spirit body and your human body, right? The density of being in this world. So the soul is like that part of us. It's the interface between these two different worlds that we both have to navigate. So it's a really good thing to make to make friends with, right? And it's the part of us that is helping us to evolve as well as a human being. And when you're working with your soul, you're getting to evolve into your soul's wisdom. You can release different emotional traumas or different things that have occurred, because we're always learning through relationships. And that can be super helpful. So again, so you ask your soul, I want to learn how to trust myself. And you just start putting your focus on that. And if you're meditating and praying, you bring that into the energy field, calling forth to my beloved cosmic Christ present into a one heart breath with my I am presence, my divine presence. I come to a one heart breath where I just come into being held. And then I drop into the field. Once I'm feeling held by my own inner presence, I'm just sending that energy and being held. I say, I'm so grateful for being unconditionally loved and accepted, for feeling safe and protected, and for feeling trustworthy, honored, and respected within myself. As I feel wise and powerful, beyond measure, and calmly connected and eternally bonded with my own higher presence. So that's a prayer you can do, right? And I added a lot of different words in there. That's just the one I do. But they're feeling tones. And so when you say, like, let's just say simply, I'm coming into that tender embrace of my presence, or I'm asking my soul to please guide me on how to be trustworthy within myself, how to have self-trust. And you'll find that the more you trust yourself, you're going to start calling back your power in ways you probably hadn't imagined. It's actually going to cause you to grow really quickly. And I've noticed even in just a few weeks that I've been doing this, that my own psyche's been growing exponentially. And I've been seeing it in how I interact with people or in my dream time, etc. And it's starting to build. It's starting to rebuild its energy. And it gives you healthier boundaries. You're able to very unconditionally say yes or no, and have good boundaries with people. Things that maybe you've been lending energy to, people, jobs, things, habits, you'll start to be able to see through as well. So calling back your soul and asking it to teach you, how can I trust myself today? What can I do? How is it that I can trust myself in this particular situation? And like I said, your soul will just take it and run with it. And you have an innate intelligence inside of you, and it's really almost like remembering something. So it's not like you're learning how to trust yourself. That was something that was there before you were even brought into this world. So your trust within yourself, that innate intelligence is already there. And when you ask your soul to please help you and to guide you on how to open up that trust within yourself again, to trust myself, then what happens is your soul begins to cause an awakening with that part of yourself that maybe was kind of asleep, or that you pushed aside because you maybe as a child had to give your power over to other people, or you felt like you did in order to survive. And yeah, so that'll help to rewrite the gaslighting part. Now, the second part of our call is based on intelligent vices and intelligent virtues. So to go back to my family story for a moment, when I read the article, I realized, oh man, this is like what's going on in this family situation. And I could see it, but in asking how to be in integrity with myself about that relationship, I had to really think through how I wanted to handle it to be in integrity, right, with myself, and to, because sometimes you just walk away, sometimes you have to say something, sometimes you have to stand up for yourself, sometimes you don't. So in this situation, I chose to say something, and that just felt like in right alignment for me. And there's and when we are unconditionally honest with ourselves first and foremost, and then we choose to share that unconditional love of ourselves with another person, they may or may not be able to meet you in the energy. So you need to know that up front. That unconditional love is something that, as you learn to do what's most unconditionally loving for you, just by asking the question, again, on a soul level, I wonder what's most unconditionally loving with me. I really couldn't let this go until I spoke up for myself, till I said something. And that was what was most unconditionally loving. But I knew doing it, that it might cost the relationship. And so I had to be okay with that too. Again, it was unconditional. I was writing what I was writing for myself. I was saying what I was saying for myself. And in this case, it so far has cost a relationship. But again, I was willing to do that in this particular situation. That's not always necessary, but to be unconditionally loving, you have to let that other person, whoever you're dealing with, be able to respond. And sometimes people have the emotional intelligence and capacity to work through something with you, and sometimes they don't. So if you're being unconditionally loving with yourself, and you're standing up to some kind of gaslighting or giving your power away, and you're starting to see through it, then again, to not get hooked back into it, you have to trust yourself. And part of trusting yourself is in the unconditional love. And when you have that unconditional love for yourself, it gives you this incredible strength and power to be able to follow through. And when you follow through on something, whatever it might be, again, you start to gain trust in yourself. And it will challenge your illusions, because I think most of us as human beings, particularly when it comes to family or close relationships in our life, we will, maybe we don't want to be alone, or we're in these dynamics, these triangles with people that they're all kind of enmeshed emotional relationships. And when you are honest with yourself and others, and you're starting to trust yourself, and you start acting on trusting yourself, you are kind of breaking the tribal code. So as human beings, we interact on kind of a tribal level. And there's really good things about being in tribe with people. It's community. If my car breaks down and I call you, maybe you'll come help me. Or I'm going to cook dinner tonight, maybe you cook dinner tomorrow night. Let's grow a garden, but it's a big garden, so we'll all come together as a community garden. Raising children, it takes a village to raise a child, kind of thing. So tribal energy can really accomplish a lot for a single goal. We can build houses together, like the Amish can build a whole house in pretty much a day. It's pretty amazing. So there is that tribal energy. But at the same time, if somebody wants to grow, or they want to do something different than the tribal belief system, or the dynamic that's been passed down through generations of trauma after trauma after trauma after trauma, it's a big deal. And one of the mentorship people sent me this awesome article that said, think about your history, your lineage like this, that there's you and there's two parents. Those two parents have their parents. So now you have those four parents. Well, those four parents have their two parents. So now that's 8. And within a very short period of time, it was something like 200 or 140 something thousand people are in your lineage. It was an amazing number. I got to find that article, and I'll see if I can repost it here. But yeah, so anyway, I really appreciate the article. It was amazing to think about that you relate to your parents and maybe your grandparents, but you have no idea that you're literally talking about in a very short generational period having this exorbitant amount of like 200,000 people that you're pulling into your gene pool, and all of those belief systems that come with it, all those traumas and famines that they've been through, and wars that they've been through, and deaths and loss, and really good things too, right? Attributes. But a lot of times with the really harsh things in life, people sometimes don't always have the resources, and that get passed down into your genealogical lineage to make up who you are. So as a tribal person, or like in a tribe, and you want to break free of that tribal energy, there can be like hell to pay in a sense, because that tribe depends on everybody playing their role. And if somebody says, oh, I'm just not going to play my role anymore, and I'm going to tell the truth about something in the family, or I'm going to move to New York City and leave the farm, or I'm going to be an artist instead of, run the family business in the small town, then that creates an energy. Now, there is an excellent book. It's so good. Let me see if I can remember it. Okay, it's called The Dream Giver, and I would highly recommend this book if you have been raised by anybody. And let's see here. I'm going to put who it's by. Let's see, by Wilkinson. Okay. So this is a really cool little parable book. That's Wilkinson. So it's a really cool little parable book. And if you look at Joseph Campbell, he does a lot of work on the hero's journey. And this book, The Dream Giver, is sort of coming, it is the hero's journey that he's describing, but I think he has a little bit more of a religious background, the Wilkinson author. So he kind of looks at it a little bit more like he's also seen it in the parables of the Bible, but you could also say the parables of any indigenous culture, or the Grecian, gods and goddesses. So these stories are found everywhere. And he does a really good job. And he talks about the main character's name is Nobody. And nobody wants to be a somebody, because somebody looks really cool, right? So he wants to be a somebody. And he goes on this journey of self-discovery. And in the hero's journey that Joseph Campbell talks about, and again, it is written in our DNA, it is part of our humanity, it has been done throughout centuries this way. They're kind of like 12 steps of healing. There are these 12 phases that we tend to go through to self-identify. And oftentimes it requires stepping out of the family unit in order to do that. Now, with indigenous people, it usually happens around 13 or 14, that oftentimes the children are sort of taken out of the parent, the family dynamic, and given to a master teacher or a different part of the community or a different set of people. And so they step away from, at that age, right when we hit puberty, when you kind of stay longer than you should, what happens a lot of times is people will start caretaking their parents. They'll get right back into those parental patterns instead of self-identifying. So anyway, this book is so cute, and it really takes you through it. But in part of the book, what happens is they go to their parents and they're like, I really want to go take that journey. I want to go travel to this foreign land to go and discover whatever it is they think they're going to discover. And then the parents like, no, that sounds really dangerous. I don't think you should do that. You could die, because that's always the outcome. You could die. Something out there is bad and you could die. You need to stay with us. And then they go to their best friend. Hey, I'm really thinking about taking this journey, and it seems really cool. And of course, that person's just looking for some some acceptance or encouragement. And the best friend is like, well, I don't want to leave, so I don't think you should either. So stay, and we'll just hang out, and things will just be the way they always are. And so you really have to push against sometimes tribal, the mechanics of tribal thought and energy, particularly in your genealogical order, of your family dynamic, to step out of all of that. So it's appropriate. And I think a lot of people who are, I've heard it over and over and over, people who are intuitives, have special traits, or empaths, oftentimes feel like they are the odd one in their family, they are the black sheep. So this is where I think you'll really enjoy the book. And as you read the book, because I think essentially it is a story of our human nature, it's our human story, in terms of how we process and evolve. I think it actually helps us to understand it and to feel more courage in being who we really are, which brings us back to trusting ourselves. Because when you want to ignite your soul blueprint and you want to be the best of who you are and you want to fulfill your soul purpose being here, you're going to have to call your trust back to do it. It's just kind of inevitable. It's a resource that you need in place, really, in order to have enough power, personal power, courage, agape type love, in order to follow through. Otherwise, we tend to get stuck in this relationship or this family issue or this pattern or this chaos or this job, whatever it is we tend to do. So that's the way that energy rolls. Okay, now, in that same morning that I was looking at the gaslighting article, I also came across an article that I thought was pretty good on intelligent vices and intelligent virtues. Now, this is another capacity for the trust, not just family, but this gets into some of the social media and people in your community, however it is. It could be political, religious, community projects, jobs, social media. It's anything kind of, again, outside of you where you are wondering if you can trust yourself up against other people or not, that are essentially kind of authority figures. So in the second article, it talks a lot about intelligent vices and virtues. And we all have both, okay? So intelligent vices is like gullibility and closed-mindedness, fear, anxieties, worries. These are intelligent vices. In other words, our mind can sometimes play tricks on us, and then we don't trust our intuition, we don't trust our mind, we don't trust what we are seeing, we don't trust what just happened. We kind of blow it off. Intelligent virtues are patience, compassion, higher love and understanding, wisdom, open-mindedness, sometimes even critical thinking goes along with intelligent virtues, right? So you have these, your mind, and all of us are kind of privy to this, where we have these intelligent vices and virtues. And you want to be open enough and honest enough with yourself, again, because this is how you can rebuild trust. So, for instance, when I realized the gaslighting thing, I'm like, oh, shoot, the gaslighting thing's happening. And now I kind of have to stand up for myself with this. And I trusted myself, right? Well, in the process of that, it would have been really easy for me to go into, and I must have most of my life with this family situation. It's not just one person, it's kind of a whole situation, right? Where my intelligent vices are, I'll go along with what they say. I'll just let it slide one more time. I'll make them right and I'll be wrong. I will not acknowledge my feelings. I'm being kind of gullible. They said this was true, so I'm sure it is true, without even questioning it, right? So I started realizing that. Now, at the same time this was unraveling, and this gets into a bigger subject of, let's say social media, right? Is there's a lot out right now on the conspiracy theories. And regardless of where you stand with that, like, my personal view is I think there's elements of truth in most anything that's out there. There's an element of truth in it. And for one reason, just because we're human beings and we put thought into something, we make it a real, it's real to that person, or it's a real agenda or whatever. So there's probably elements of truth in all of it. But if, let's say, you had a gaslighting authority figure in your family, a matriarch or a patriarch, some guardian, and whether they knew it or not everybody knows they're gaslighting. They just don't know what to call it, but really they are they are manipulating for their own gain, in a sense, and causing the other people around them to feel kind of crazy, or not heard or not seen, or their emotions don't count. And then you start discounting yourself. It's very easy to get into the intelligent vices, the gullibility, the going down the path, right? So because of the business I'm in, and it's more of an alternative business, I do have a lot of people sending me all kinds of articles and YouTube videos and all kinds of stuff. But I usually do try to check most everything out that people send me. And I'm super curious about it. So I want to know. I do have an open mind in that way. But when it came to some of the conspiracy theories, I had a gullibility, right? So that's one of my intelligent vices, is that I can be gullible at times when it comes to people. Like, I'm kind of assuming they're telling me the truth, even though maybe deep down I know there's something off. But because my brain has been hardwired because of our childhood, right? We've been hardwired to give our power away and to trust somebody else. Then what happens is, now if you're also coming into a religious situation, a political situation, a spiritual, oh my gosh, it's rampant in the spiritual community, social media, it's rampant. It's going to be hard to figure out what's true and what's not any longer. And right now we happen to be at an age, maybe because of the internet and just, I don't know, we're just at an age, a communication age, I guess is the best way to say it, where it's really hard to know the difference. Is somebody just marketing me? Is there an agenda? Or am I actually, is this in my best interest, right? So that energy is kind of rolling around right now. And so it's going to be really important for you to be able to trust yourself. And so in the second article I gave, it talks about the intelligent vices and virtues. And the more honest you can be with yourself about what it is, the more you're going to be able to decipher what feels good to you and what doesn't. So I have a couple things that I do for myself. One is I notice how I feel in my body. Now, there are certain, like, I love YouTube a lot. So there are certain YouTube videos I find when I start watching them, I start feeling a little bit neurotic, kind of like I'm on cocaine, and I start going down the rabbit hole with them, right? And then I just can't stop thinking about it. It starts obsessing. It starts taking up a lot of my brain space. I can't quite let go of it. And I just want to tell the whole world, like, I want to become the hero. I want to, like, save everybody from something. And for me, that's when I am becoming kind of neurotic into when I'm not trusting myself. I'm giving my power away to something. I can feel somewhere way in the background something might be off, but it's so far in the background, I can't, it's hard to find it. So I've noticed to start trusting my body's wisdom. So if you're an intuitive person or somebody with special traits, when you're hearing political figures, which is really big right now, obviously, right? Or religious or spiritual teachings that are out there, or YouTube videos, or social media, whatever it could be, notice how you feel in your body. And if you're feeling anxious, nervous, hopeless, powerless, overwhelmed, confused, these are all signs that there's a good chance somebody, the intention is more of a gaslighting intention. In other words, they're wanting something. There's an agenda. Somebody wants control over somebody else and whatever it is. Like I said, religion, spirituality, politics, those are just like, that happens a lot. You see it with lawyers. You see it with doctors. You see it with all kinds of genres of people, really, right? So you see it in healers and therapists and people who are in my line of work. It happens quite a lot. And so as a sentient, as a sensitive soul, you want to start taking care of yourself. And again, for one, notice your body's wisdom. How do you feel when you're in the presence of that person? And how do you want to handle it? Like, really, where's your level of honesty with it? Okay, now, the next thing to notice is not only your intelligent vices. Like, I tend to have gullibility with people. I do tend to be a little more gullible. I'm not so much closed-minded. That's not necessarily one of mine. But the worst combination you can have is somebody who's gullible. They have a weak link in their psyche. Maybe they've had a trauma. Maybe they've had a really bad experience. Maybe they've been heartbroken. Maybe they've been taken advantage of, by people, the community, a government, a partner. They've been taken advantage of somehow. And that has given them a really, that makes them vulnerable in a sense to somebody promising them something or offering them something or controlling them in some way. So that's one of the things about the gullibility. But then you take that same person and they become closed-minded because of their pain. now you can't really get through to them. Now you can't talk to them. It's almost impossible. So you don't want to make people wrong with whatever their belief system is or whatever they're doing. It's not going to serve anybody, whatever people are doing, right? But you can definitely hold sort of a steady space in your own energy field that maintains a sense of clarity and peace and higher guidance. So with the intelligent virtues, you can start looking, what are some of my intelligent virtues? And again, that article will kind of list things. And of course, you'll have your own as well. And start noticing that, and then start angling your mind towards your intelligent virtues. Like the book, oh gosh, what's it called? The Strength Finder 2.0. It's a kind of a brilliant program. There's also the Emotional Finder 2.0. And both the books are really excellent. And if you get the Strength Finder 2.0, you have to buy the book new. Don't get it used. And it's about 20-something bucks, no matter where you find it usually. And there's a code in the back of the book, and it shouldn't have been used. And you can go online and you can take a test. It's about 30 minutes. It's like a personality test. And what it does is it starts to teach you your strengths. Which is really a good thing to have. But what they say is that most people, I'm just trying to put this in here for you, Strength Finder 2.0. Okay, so what they say is most of the time, what people want to do is they want to focus on their negative. Oh, I'm not a good enough cook, so I'm going to keep trying to learn how to cook. I'm not a good flute player, so I'm going to learn how to play flute. I'm not good at doing paperwork or accounting, so I'm going to focus on that. Instead, you just let your intelligent vices be your vices, but you put your attention towards your intelligent virtues. So the Strength Finder 2.0 teaches you your 5 top strengths. And in doing that, you really want to start excelling at your strengths, not your weaknesses. And a big thing, particularly for people who feel kind of insecure or inadequate to life, they will just beat their head against a wall trying to fix their weaknesses. Don't bother. Doesn't even matter. Focus on your strengths. And that's really the way that you start to feel your soul blueprint. That's the way you start to feel your success, your happiness, your growth. Is focus on that. So can't say enough about that, actually. So figure out what your emotional, your intelligent virtues and vices are and where they're playing out in your life. Like for me, it happened to be with the YouTube videos and a lot of the conspiracy videos, particularly right now. And going down that path and watching them and be like, well, that could be true. And, that's really horrible. And it was sort of playing on my energy. And then, of course, if you have the algorithms, it's going to take you even deeper down the rabbit hole. And that's where you really got to be careful if you're dealing with social media stuff. But with religion, spirituality, politics, a lot of times you have tribal things. People who tribally, if you're a Republican or if you're a Democrat, you got to stick with that, right? Or if you're this religion, or if you're this type of spirituality, or you're in this particular workout club, or whatever it is, that's all tribal stuff. So you want to come back to the sense of trusting yourself. And we've covered some of that in the beginning of how to come back to that. So again, you want to start trusting yourself above and beyond anyone else. And at first that might seem a little scary and you might feel kind of alone. You might feel a little bit of anxiety, like, gosh, what if I can't do that, And you can, because trusting yourself is part of your innate intelligence. It's already inside you. This is just you remembering it and choosing for it. And so that kind of concludes our call tonight. I'm hoping that a list of these resources will help you get back to yourself. If you have any questions, if you want to line up a personal session or go over this a little bit more in detail for yourself, you can also go to my website and check it out there. I have different resources. And the other thing is that one of the reasons the Truth came thing up so strongly this month is that we've been working this past month of August. Each month in the membership, the My Wild Magic Mystery School, we take a flame of creation and we work with it. And so this last month, it was Archangel Gabriel, the Ascended Master Serapis Bey, and the crystal white flame of purity, which governs the 6th chakra. And truth is one of the signature tones. So that is another resource, is to call forth Archangel Gabriel. He's a magnificent angel that can really help to open you up to what is my truth. And don't worry about everybody else's truth or trying to navigate. What is my truth about this? And keep coming back and keep asking. And even within 3 weeks, even within 21 days, I think that you will start to create a new habit, a new relationship with yourself, and therefore a new relationship with all of life. So thank you for being on the call tonight. The next thing I have coming up is the 21-day virtual soul quest. Would love to have you join. Again, go to my website and you can read more about it or sign up. If you have any questions, reach out. I'm happy to talk to you about any of this. All right. Have a good evening and practice trusting yourself. Okay. Good night.